The National Assembly of Venezuela unanimously approved the draft agreement condemning the plundering of the Venezuelan company CITGO by the U.S. government and sectors of the national extreme right. The Liberal Party of Honduras denounced Tuesday that the two-party system is imposing an electoral coup against presidential candidate Rixi Moncada. And in Peru, the Union of Workers at the Shahuindo mining company announced the radicalization of protests. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The National Assembly of Venezuela unanimously approved the draft agreement condemning the plundering of the Venezuelan company CITGO by the U.S. government and sectors of the national extreme right. In a special extraordinary session, the National Assembly unanimously condemned the illegitimate sale of the Venezuelan oil company CITGO of the country's main asset by the United States government. During the debate, the president of the legislative body, Jorge Rodriguez, emphasized the need to apply the asset forfeiture law and the Liberator Simon Bolivar law to convict those responsible for the plundering of the Venezuelan oil company, while proposing to urge the national executive to revoke the nationality of those involved in this crime. In turn, the Parliament approved in first discussion the repeal of the law adopting the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, denouncing that the institution is being used as a tool by the economic and political powers of imperialism.
Las honorables diputadas y los honorables diputados que están a favor de
The honorable members of Parliament who are in favor of approving the agreement bill to condemn the plundering of the Venezuelan company CITGO by the U.S. government and sectors of the national fascist right, with the modifications discussed here, including the call for the withdrawal of the nationality of the leaders of that gang of thieves who facilitated and enriched themselves astronomically with the plundering of CITGO. Please express so in the usual way. The agreement is unanimously approved. Mr. Secretary, please proceed to publish it in all media, and please also proceed to write a letter of request to the citizen and constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela for the purpose of the conclusions derived from the approval of the agreement.
Likewise, Pedro Infante, first Vice President of the Legislative Body, stated that the plundering of the Venezuelan company CITGO reaffirms President Nicolás Maduro's denunciations about the true intentions behind the U.S. military threat, which seeks to appropriate Venezuela's natural resources.
That's why we present this agreement before this National Assembly. The draft resolution repudiating the plundering of the Venezuelan company CITGO by the U.S. government and fascist right-wing sectors nationwide. And I believe we can perfectly connect this. On November 30th, President Nicolás Maduro sent a letter to the OPEC and OPEC Plus Secretary General, where the president clearly states that the U.S. government's interest que sus amenazas del uso de la fuerza y el uso de la fuerza en el Caribe contra civiles. Their threats of force and actual use of force in the Caribbean, mainly against civilians, aims at regime change, and regime change seeks to steal natural resources, primarily oil. El petróleo, y esto es un ejemplo de eso. Podemos decir como anexo, pudiéramos enviar como anexo. This is a clear example. We could send it as an annex to OPEC plus member countries and peoples worldwide as irrefutable proof that the U.S. government, the North American imperialism, wants to steal our people's oil.
In this context, the government of Venezuela, through Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, issued a statement rejecting a U.S. recent court decision regarding the approval of the sale of CITGO Petroleum Corporation, a subsidiary of PDVSA based in the United States. The statement points out that the legal proceedings conducted by the United States were carried out to the detriment of the Venezuelan people and constitute a disposal of a strategic Venezuelan asset on U.S. territory. The Vice President emphasized that the Venezuelan government and PDVSA were excluded from the court proceedings and their right to defend was denied. In response, Venezuela announced that it would take all measures at its disposal to bring the promoters and executors of this dispossession to justice.
Curiosamente, este tribunal
Curiously, this court has decided to hand over CITGO to a vulture fund, which is registered in the lobbies that are part of election campaigns and elections. It is registered as a financer of a high-ranking official in the current United States government, so that all Venezuelans can get an idea of this theft. One more added to the theft of the gold from the Bank of England, now an asset in the territory of the United States, whose value as an asset amounts to approximately $12 billion. But CITGO was taken over by extremists posing as the Venezuelan government since 2019. And that company generates approximately between $4 billion and $5 billion every year. Imagine, not only are we losing an asset of $12 billion, the Venezuelan people, but since 2019 they have accumulated dividends of approximately $24 billion. What have they done with that money? They have stolen it.
And U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to carry out military ground attacks in Latin America under the pretext of allegedly fighting drug production and trafficking. In a statement to the press, Donald Trump affirmed that any country that manufactures fentanyl to sell it in the United States would be subject to a military attack, directly pointing the finger at Colombia. This is despite the fact that there is no evidence verified by international authorities that countries in the region are manufacturers of this substance. The president also made it clear that the threat extends to any government that, in his opinion, is involved in drug trafficking. In this sense, Trump also repeated his accusations against Venezuela, insisting that that country allegedly empties its prisons and sends migrants to U.S. territory, whom he described as murderers and traffickers. This rhetoric criminalizes migration and revives the narrative of the war on drugs strategy that has been used by Washington for decades to justify its political and military interventionism in Latin America. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Liberal Party of Honduras denounced Tuesday that the two-party system is imposing an electoral coup against presidential candidate Rixi Moncada. Libre coordinator Manuel Zelaya accused the next President Donald Trump of interference and criticized his pardon to former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted in the United States for drug trafficking. Zelaya affirmed that the President Xiomara Castro enjoys more than 55% support for her good governance. Honduras respects her and the world recognizes her. The Libre Party presented an honest and capable candidate with a strong character and a deeply democratic campaign based on an economic proposal to liberate the people and break the privileges of the elites. Zelaya claims that's the main reason of the interference, since they cannot win fairly. He described the action as a crude, unjust and infamous foreign intervention to twist the will of the people and stop Rixi Moncada from becoming president. And regarding the vote count, election councillor Marlon Ochoa said that at 1 a.m. local time today, the group ASD verbally informed the plenary that on election night, 16,708 records received were withheld and have not been released to the public yet. 3,880 of those records are from the presidential election, 6,387 from the deputies, and 6,441 from municipal corporations. This confirms that the TREP does not represent any guarantee of transparency for the electoral process. However, Tegucigalpa Mayor Jorge Aldana assured that the Libre Party leads in the Central District and called for defending the victory at the polls. Aldana thanked on X all the good people of the capital who voted and said that with 97% of the votes counted, the same figure of the National Electoral Council, the Libre Party has a 3.5% lead, and urged the people to defend that victory. For his part, the presidential candidate nominated by the Libre Party, Enrique Reina, described the situation in the country as surreal and denounced foreign interference in the electoral process. On social media, Reina emphasized, "What is happening today in Honduras is surreal, revealing a conflict of dark, enormous, and unknown interest. If the 2009 coup and the narco dictators set us back decades, this is unthinkable and unprecedented." The reports of the OAS and the European Union Honduras 2025 election observation mission do not even refer to the worst disrespect for the sovereignty of the Honduran people or anyone else, to self-determination and to the free and independent choice of our political system. Honduras is once again the laboratory for new forms of intervention. We must take a dignified and historic stand. And we move on to other topics. In Peru, the Union of Workers at the Shahuindo mining company announced the radicalization of protest. The measure comes after the company failed to reach an agreement with its employees. At a work meeting, those affected explained that the company is not willing to improve their salaries and other benefits and working conditions. In this regard, they announced that they will intensify the pressure measures initiated 6 days ago and warned that they did not rule out taking the access road to the mining operation. And Barbados implements a new way to grow food on small islands by putting into practice the first ever indoor vertical farming pilot. The objective is to reduce the Caribbean islands' dependence on imported food and also create a new generation of climate-resilient farmers. Our correspondent, Crystal Hoyde, has the details.
Barbados has taken a major step toward transforming how food is grown on small islands. The government's first ever indoor vertical farming pilot is finally coming online, a system designed to boost food security and shield the country from the worsening effects of the climate crisis. This Dutch-Caribbean partnership is bringing advanced technology straight into Barbados' agriculture sector, with containerized vertical farms now outfitted for testing, training, and research. Officials say the goal is simple but bold: reduce the island's dependence on imported food and create a new generation of climate-resilient farmers.
In this growing room, we have the first test of the first indoor vertical farm in the country, in Barbados. We can control all the parameters. When you are outside, you have to be contemplating when it's going to come a big storm or when the temperatures are going to reach a peak, which can make so much stress in the plant that a lot of them die, or there are with poor conditions for harvest at the end. Here we can control all the conditions, but not only environmental conditions, also the pests that come and also the diseases.
She says it's not only climate resilient, but it's more profitable.
Usually, for placing an example, a lettuce can take in outdoors since the beginning till the end around 60 days is the normal cycle. It can be some varieties that are shorter, even longer, but like a middle term here for the different varieties that we were practicing, it's around 30 days, as I said to you, even shorter, like 28. So this can make like 12 cycles a year.
Minister of Agriculture and Food Security Indar Ware says when it comes to farming, Barbados cannot continue to do the same thing and expect different results.
The responsibility falls to us to make sure that we not only provide support for the farmers, but that we do the transformative work that would allow for us to be able to bring into the country the type of farming facilities to the next level where we can produce a lot of the crops that are most vulnerable to climate in those growing systems.
Reporting for teleSUR, Crystal Hoyt, Barbados.
And now we have a second show break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. On a show break, we'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. Indonesia records more than 750 fatalities from flooding and landslides caused by torrential rains that have hit several provinces in the country. According to the National Agency for Disaster Management, more than 520 people were also reported missing and around 2,600 injured. The agency reports at least 3,600 homes were damaged and 1.2 million people had fled their homes. Torrential rains have caused the flooding and landslides in provinces such as West Sumatra. And in other informations, in the United States, a supermarket chain filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration over tariff policies. The North America's largest supermarket chain, Costco, is demanding a full refund from Washington for all taxes paid as a result of the national government's tariff measures. According to the company's legal team, the lawsuit seeks to guarantee the possibility of a refund for all companies that have paid import duties. Let's recall that in mid-August 2025, President Donald Trump imposed trade tariffs on several countries, which led to those nations responding with reciprocal tariffs of between 10 and 14%. And Russian President Vladimir Putin received Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the rest of the U.S. delegation to discuss the peace agreement in Ukraine. The meeting between President Putin and Witkoff comes after the talks held last Sunday between U.S. and Ukrainian delegations in Florida. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov reported that the meeting will last as long as necessary, following recent advances by the Russian armed forces, as reported by President Putin, within the framework of the special military operation in Ukraine to liberate two strategic cities in Donetsk and Kharkiv. Part of the plan has been criticized by the West for ignoring Trump's demands for Ukraine to cede territory and Kiev's aspiration to join NATO. And meanwhile, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, Wang Yi, arrived in Russia to take part in the 20th round of strategic security consultation between the two countries. On Tuesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with his Chinese counterpart to discuss implementation of the goals set by Presidents Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping at two recent summits. In this regard, Foreign Minister Lavrov assured that Moscow's task is to ensure close coordination on international policy issues, including strategic stability and reliable security for the Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China, as well as their joint action in global structures. For his part, Wang assured that thanks to the strategic leadership of both heads of state, their bilateral relations are at high level despite adversities and difficulties. And also Russian President Vladimir Putin said Tuesday that Moscow is not interested in an armed conflict with Europe, but remains vigilant against NATO's pressures and threats. The statement was made during the 16th VTB Investment Forum, which is taking place in Moscow on December 2nd and 3rd. The Russian leader also said that the European continent excluded itself from the peace processes to end the Ukrainian conflict as it does not support Moscow's strategies. He also affirmed that due to Europe began to obstruct the peace talks promoted by the United States and stressed that NATO does not have a peaceful agenda for the conflict. Also on Tuesday in Lebanon, Pope Leo XIV concluded the first apostolic journey of his pontificate with a call for peace among peoples and an end to the horrors of war. The Pope visited Lebanon for 3 days as part of the second leg of a foreign trip that began in Turkey. And during this journey, Pope Leo XIV warned that the future of humanity is in danger due to the proliferation of conflicts in the world and called on the international community to spare no effort in promoting processes of dialogue and reconciliation. The Pope's last day in Lebanon began with prayers at the port of Beirut, the scene of 2 explosions in August 2020 that left more than 200 people dead and about 300,000 civilians homeless. The Pope also celebrated Mass on the capital seafront, where thousands of Lebanese received communion.
Dear brothers and sisters, during these days of my first apostolic journey, undertaken during this Jubilee year, I wanted to come as a pilgrim of hope to the Middle East, imploring God for the gift of peace for this beloved land, marked by instability, wars, and suffering. I make a heartfelt appeal to those who hold political and social authority here and in all countries marked by war and violence. Listen to the cry of your peoples who are calling for peace.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.